Can you provide a brief summary of what exactly transpired with the insider trading just to set the table?
I mean, simply put, I was very focused on new and emerging therapies. One of those areas was hepatitis C. I had developed a network around the world that was involved in the development of these new therapies. I received a phone call from a doctor in Europe who had just found out that three patients had died in a particular clinical trial, and that particular trial was being conducted by a company that we had a comparatively very small position in, but it was a small company. So we began to sell that stock as a result of that information. We sold for probably 3 weeks or 4 weeks. But at the end of that selling period, there was a there were some catastrophic market events that were happening in the world, and so we just decided to punt that remaining position. And the people who bought it happened to buy it on the day before the news came out that we had found out about weeks before, and they were upset and called the SEC, and that's what led to my pleading guilty for conspiracy, what was conspiracy to commit securities fraud, which is the statute that people call insider trading.
So, in an ideal scenario, you get that phone call from that doctor with that insider information. What is it that you're supposed to do to stay within the confines of the law?
Well, I mean, by today's standard, the definition of insider trading has changed. It's all based on statute. So by today's standard, that would probably not be considered insider trading. But at the time, if you wanted to, let's say you were a super, strict regulation observing guy, you would have called not your trader, you would have called your legal counsel and said, look, I just became aware of material non-public information for this company. I'm unclear of the source. We need to restrict our firm from trading in that stock until we can get this restriction lifted.
I was certainly intoxicated by the world I was living in, and to a certain extent, I was aware of it, but I definitely was not going to be able to save myself from it. There was no way I was going to rescue myself. Obviously, a much different scenario after the insider trading takes place. But before that transpired, why don't you think you were able to save yourself?
Well, I mean, the money was good. My reputation was exactly what I dreamed and hoped it would be. Um, the position I had in my community, and the position that I had even in my own life with regard to my wife and my children, and all the bells and whistles, all the accoutrements of life. I had those things. Um, Notwithstanding the fact that I was deeply unsatisfied with my life, um, there was no way I was just going to walk away from that without a reason to.
Yeah, it's almost like the band-aid had to be ripped off by somebody else.
Exactly, and that's exactly why, Tim. When I look back at the events that transpired and what happened, I see a grace from God in my life. Had He not intervened, had He not ripped the band-aid off, I mean, things were not going in a good direction.